Multiple MicroStrategy copycats are scooping up Bitcoin at an unprecedented rate. And this is all triggering the potential of a Bitcoin short squeeze because they are scooping up Bitcoin off exchanges at a rate like we've never seen before. And to top it all off, the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges is rapidly decreasing at a rate we've never seen before. Now, look at this gap increasingly widening here on a daily basis as more and more Bitcoin keeps getting off an exchange. And it seems like we hit this inflection point at late last year in November as more Bitcoin was getting scooped up off an exchange comparatively to what was being bought. Now, to top it all off, we are seeing another MSTR copycat in GameStop now buying Bitcoin. So, Ryan Cohen at the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world went and spoke and talked about their new Bitcoin strategy. Everybody was speculating, when is GameStop going to buy Bitcoin? They haven't announced it just yet. Are they actually going to do it? Well, look, this Forbes article, buckle up. GameStop confirms a bombshell as wild speculation fuels huge price surge. And this was the other day, just 3 days ago, where Bitcoin surged in recent weeks, propping all-time high, and Ryan Cohen and GameStop announced a buy of 4,710 Bitcoin, worth about $511 million. Now, this is just one of the MSTR copycats that is now buying Bitcoin. We've also had Trump's media company take a $2.5 billion investment to buy Bitcoin. So it seems like the wave is now coming along where everybody is looking at Bitcoin as a way to pump up their balance sheet. Ryan Cohen and GameStop doing this $511 million Bitcoin buy. You might be saying to yourself, okay, that is not that much, and they rose $1.3 billion worth. Well, if you look back at the numbers, MSTR, their first buy was at $250 million, or just roughly half that of GameStop's first buy. So already the big copycat in GameStop is doubling up on what MSTR did not too long ago. And then we're seeing the wave of GameStop and how this is changing investors already looking at GameStop as putting it on its balance sheet. Investors are actually fleeing away following this $500 million Bitcoin splurge, which I think is interesting that they're putting it on there. But the reality is that all of these MSTR copycats are looking at Bitcoin for one reason, because it's the best performing asset of the past 15, 16 years since its creation. But I think they're all seeing this, right? They're all seeing this chart right here where the amount of Bitcoin getting scooped off of exchanges is hitting an all-time rate. And then we also have, MSTR buying Bitcoin, doing what it's doing. We've got Donald Trump's media company talking about buying $2.5 billion worth. We've got Jack Mallers also talking about buying up to $1 million or 1 million Bitcoin and putting it on 21's balance sheet. So they bought this 4,812, valuing at $458 million. So we've got a lot of Bitcoin being scooped off exchanges and doing it very quickly. And the reality of this situation is that there's not a lot of Bitcoin left to be mined, folks. There's only about 1.4 million Bitcoin left to be mined. And that's going to happen over the next 100 plus years. So these zombie companies scooping up Bitcoin And these ultra wealthy with big balance sheet, and we're going to get into the ultra wealthy here in a minute, because last time I joined you guys, there's been a lot of news that has come down. I mean, I was just in Vegas at this Bitcoin conference. The vibe around Bitcoin has absolutely changed. Everything has shifted. And part of it is because these giant corporations are seeing Bitcoin as something viable to put on their balance sheet. Zombie companies should be no more, because these companies should be putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet and continue to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet because of this and this right here. Bitcoin mining producing 450 Bitcoin daily, which adds up to about roughly 3,150 Bitcoin weekly. Well, what did we just see? All right, 21 bought that amount in less than a week. We had 4,812 Bitcoin bought. Trump is looking to buy $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. So, quick math here, but that looks like, I believe, 25,000 Bitcoin, if I've got that correct. Now, I'm sorry about that if that math isn't correct, but I'm doing this on the fly here. And then we have GameStop also buying 4,710 Bitcoin. And on top of that, we have Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy buying Bitcoin. We have other companies buying Bitcoin. And we have giant governments now starting to get in and to buy Bitcoin. So the amount of Bitcoin treasury companies is absolutely accelerating. The amount of Bitcoin on a balance sheet is absolutely accelerating. And that's not going to be slowing down anytime soon, because, we've got MicroStrategy. Here we go. This was earlier this week where they bought 4,020 Bitcoin. And they announced these Bitcoin buys literally every single week, right? So they are essentially saying, hey, we are buying more Bitcoin that is being mined every single week. And same with everybody else, right? So a lot of these Bitcoin related, or these zombie companies, as you guys in the chat are calling them, a lot of them are going to continue and basically have no other choice but to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet and do it very quickly because of the amount of Bitcoin just being scooped off of balance sheets, right? So Bitcoin on publicly traded companies is accelerating. We're seeing the amount of Bitcoin on treasuries absolutely skyrocket in flight. We've got 214 and now 116 publicly traded companies. We've even got a full-on company called Bitcoin for Corporations, for Christ's sake, who is encouraging companies to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet and continue to do this. So the reality of the situation is all of these are accelerating. We've gotten over 49,000 Bitcoin being bought in a single week from just these entities that we know. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that math of 49,000 is a whole hell of a lot more than that 3,000 is mined on a single weekly basis. But okay, maybe we say that happened over this past month. That is still greater than that by about 4 times, maybe 3 to 4 times more, right? So 3 to 4 times more, that's looking at the amount of Bitcoin in a quarter scooped up by just these single entities, right? So 13,500 Bitcoin, say, even if you're on the bear side of things, Brandon, they're not doing this on a weekly basis. They're doing this on a quarterly basis. Well, okay, multiply this times 4. That 49,000 is almost all of the Bitcoin scooped up off of exchanges just by these entities that we are naming here today. That doesn't include governments. That doesn't include retail taking their Bitcoin off an exchange. That doesn't include all of these excess factors. And that's also assuming that these Bitcoin miners are selling Bitcoin directly to these exchanges and keeping it to these exchanges. So all of these factors adding up is making for the perfect Bitcoin cocktail for us to start skyrocketing and keep on going up. And on top of it all, we don't even have to sell our Bitcoin anymore. We've got Jack Mallers at 21 making the lending out for Bitcoin more accessible to the everyday person. We've got all these different products getting more and more accessible to the everyday person so you don't have to sell your Bitcoin for your everyday expenses. So this is continuing all while all of these major corporations are continuing to buy, and the Bitcoin balance on exchanges is starting to fall down. And that's going to continue to fall down, folks. We're going to definitely start to see this. And especially as we start to see this price start to shoot up. We've got the Bitcoin price dumping to 104,000. That's absolute lunacy here, right? I don't understand how we can actually really realistically believe that Bitcoin is crashing to 104,000. But here we are, folks. Here we are. And like many of you know, I'm a strong advocate for getting your Bitcoin off an exchange. We're seeing the exchanges lose their balance, and we're seeing Coinbase and others now have problems with withdrawing their Bitcoin when a person is now buying it, and even just a little bit of an amount of Bitcoin. And so, with that, right? This is why I've partnered with my friends over at the Bitcoin Well. If you go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle, you could sign up today, and then you will win 500 Bitcoin Wishing Well tokens, and then you'll get 500 on your first transaction. So that is 2 coins in the Wishing Well now for your potential chance to win 1 million sats. So let's get your Lightning wallets ready, because we are going to be giving you sats. Make sure you smoke that like Cheech and Chong. You hit that subscribe button with the bell notification so you know when I'm giving you free sats. And boom, we got 683 sats straight to the dome piece. Now, if you miss this, if somebody else in the chat scooped up these sats well before you, you could go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle, sign up here, enter your email in there, or you can go down to their OTC desk and they will walk you through a 50K purchase or more. On top of it, go to bitbox.swiss. Get yourself one. I've got mine sitting right next to me here, where you could go and get the Bitcoin only edition. Go get it now. You could use promo code Green Candle and get 5% off your entire order. And on top of it, they've got a steel wallet for you. So go ahead and go to bitbox.swiss, because what we're seeing is the amount of Bitcoin scooped up off exchanges accelerate here. So we've got nice bullish comment of buyers up there. BTC Force. What is BTC Force saying? BTC for savings and capital appreciation. MSTY for income and taxes, expenses, and investment. Look, I hold MSTY. I'm now into MSTR. Many of you guys were chirping me because I'm doing some videos on that, and I actually might have a video on that dropping soon. But BTC Moon Guy is saying when 1 million. I think we're actually coming very soon. Most of these zombie companies buying Bitcoin will be sellers of BTC in the future. GameStop has no future, neither does AMC. There's not a single theater company in the world that will ever be profitable again. Wow. Look at that. That is crazy. Steak and Shake in Pakistan. Maybe that'll work. I'm not sure. Here, BTC Moon Guy. But what I am sure about is this. What we're seeing, Bitcoin absolutely getting scooped up off an exchanges at an all-time rate. And I think that this is a bullish signal that everybody should be keeping an extremely close eye on. And we know billionaires are keeping an extremely close eye on Bitcoin, because the most famous billionaire in the world just made a shocking proposal saying that you can retire on 0.01 Bitcoin. Now, that is not clickbait, folks. That is literally words from the horse's mouth. This is Robert Kiyosaki himself, the tweet saying that even 0.01 of Bitcoin is going to be priceless in 2 years and make you very rich. So billionaires are looking at Bitcoin and saying, you don't even need a full coin. You just need 1% of a full coin, and you can then be, quote, very rich in the future. We've also got Hugh Henry, and I got a notification saying my volume is down, so let me know if you guys can hear this. But he's thinking of selling his $35 million house And then he's going to buy 10 million into Bitcoin and do that very quickly. And we all know, look, I hold real estate. I know other people hold real estate. But at the end of the day, I think that more of these billionaires are going to realize, hey, I'd rather be holding digital property like Bitcoin, something on this Bitcoin blockchain, opposed to something that, my toilet's going out over here. Look, I've got my dog sitting over here, Max, just absolutely on his back, sprawled out. He's going to tear up these floors. We got to get these things cleaned all the time, maybe even replaced. All of these things in this house is going to be depreciating here really, really soon. And then we've got Bitcoin where it requires no maintenance. Now you're going to be able to borrow against it. And we've got, the largest asset managers in the world holding this, right? So now we're even seeing multiple billionaire hedge funds follow it. So it's a billionaire movement where we're seeing, based on recent security exchanges forms 13F, we had Stephen Cohen of 72 Point Asset Management and Ken Griffin of Citadel Advisors are now loading up on Bitcoin. And this was back in January, right? After there was hitting this all-time high. This article was written fairly recently where we're having hedge fund managers buy Bitcoin and continue to do that. It's possible to get some tangible numbers on how much Bitcoin these two billionaires are buying. But what's interesting is that they're now using the Bitcoin spot ETF as their preferred way to get exposure. Cohen boosted the value of iShares Bitcoin Trust to $119.8 billion, and they purchased 1.39 million shares, and he now increased that by 49%. Look, a billionaire increasing their holdings of a single stock by 49% in a quarter is unprecedented. That's essentially, increase it by 50% in 3 months. That just doesn't happen on a normal stock or anything along those lines. That is something that is unprecedented. It's something that we've really never seen before. No other asset really has anybody doing anything like that. And during that same period, Griffin boosted his ETF holdings to 146.9 million and purchased 2.08 new shares and now owns 3.14 million. And he increased it by a head spinning 195% in a single quarter, folks. We have billionaires increasing their holdings by 50% in a quarter and 150% in a quarter. Are you absolutely kidding me? These guys have lost their mind, or have they? Because they're continuing to buy and buy Bitcoin and scoop it up at a rapid rate. But what you guys saw at the beginning of this is Robert Kiyosaki, friend of the program, who said, hey, you could retire potentially on 0.01 Bitcoin. It'll make you super rich. So let's revert back to the great Bitcoin retirement calculator. How much Bitcoin do you need to retire if you did 0.01 Bitcoin? Look, I'm saying, hey, you want to live at a comfortable $100,000 in today's dollars. The annual supply of USD will increase by 12.2%, which I think is extremely, extremely bullish. But we'll get to that in a minute. And then the annual Bitcoin appreciation rate. Look, the past 10 years, it's been 45%. The past 5 years, it's been 55%. I use the lower number just so we're conservative here for you guys. But your stack will be worth $10 million, all by what is this? April 12th, 2048. So in 23 years, less than that, you'll be able to retire with a crazy amount of Bitcoin with your stack worth about $7.44 million. And you'll just have to withdraw 543 sats a day worth about $4,000. Now, I know that 23 years out, you're looking at this Bitcoin price. You're like, Brandon, this is absolutely crazy. How does this make any sense when we're sitting here at 104,000? Look, I just lined up the math for you a little bit, but the reality of the situation is what we were lining out earlier in this video is that the Bitcoin balances are getting scooped up directly off of exchanges, and they're happening very quickly. We've got nation states and billionaires openly coming out and saying, we are going all in on Bitcoin. And we're looking at this as something that we should be keeping track of. More billionaires, 2 more billionaires are now looking at Bitcoin and looking at it as a viable asset for their portfolio. We've got Israel Englander, head of Millennial Management, and Yan Hu, head of Kapula Management. Collectively, they manage more than 120 billion in assets. So according to their 13F filings previously, they are selling NVIDIA and boosting their iShares trust by 116%. Hugh scaled back on his NVIDIA by 28% and then is boosting it in iShares by 15%. So they're looking at these things and they're saying, we want to get out of the more risky investment of NVIDIA and get into a safer investment in Bitcoin. Now, it really makes you think when you see things like that. You see billionaires fleeing one of the best performing stocks in the world. And we're going to look at assets ranked by market cap, because if you look at this little charty here, you would think NVIDIA as the 3rd largest asset by market cap. Well, wouldn't you assume that billionaires would think that this is, well, safer than Bitcoin, the 7th largest asset by market cap? Well, it doesn't seem to be the case, folks. We see people fleeing from NVIDIA and moving it into Bitcoin. So it seems like these moves are very connected. And then we also see more billionaire-led crypto plays stand out. As the Bitcoin was at the cusp, this was back in December, Mark Palmer is sticking with 2 longtime favorites of crypto bulls, MicroStrategy and Galaxy Digital. He sees the fair value of MicroStrategy because MSTR, and although the software business remains robust, it's all about their Bitcoin buys. So MicroStrategy, as Michael Saylor, the billionaire himself, keeps buying up Bitcoin. We're seeing people move from NVIDIA because of their, quote, long side upside, Bitcoin's long-term upside potential. So we don't know the exact motivations of these 2 billionaire hedge fund managers, but we do know the long-term potential upside of Bitcoin has always been one of the big primary selling points. During the past 2 years, Bitcoin is up 350% during the past decade, up more than 40,000%. And that performance is, well, eye-popping. The other thing that's eye-popping is the amount of people moving into Bitcoin. The things that Robert Kiyosaki is saying, that 0.01 Bitcoin is essentially all you need to retire here if you just can wait a little bit. And seeing the amount of billionaires just now start to buy into Bitcoin. But it's unique because everybody is seeing this too, right? The amount of Bitcoin off exchanges gets scooped up. It seems like everybody in retail is flocking towards, the Bitcoin ETFs as potentially that safe haven. I'm here to tell you that you need to get your Bitcoin off an exchange. And if you're worried about that, our friends over at the Bitcoin Way can help you out. So you could go to thebitcoinway.com/greencandle and book a free 30-minute consultation. Look, I know I look like a funeral director in this post, all right? I'm aware. But you guys can book a consultation, a free 30-minute consultation any single time you go to this. Look at this. Sunday, 2 a.m. They work from 2 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on a Sunday, folks. 1 a.m. to 6:30 there. Friday, they're working till 8:30 p.m. They're literally working around the clock to help you guys out. And I don't know where you could get better service than that. And then on top of that, I've got a recent partnership with my friends over at Unchained. So they've got some great things and great products. If you're looking for a Bitcoin IRA, a Bitcoin uh a Bitcoin IRA, something along the lines of that. So, or some sort of retirement account. They help out with multi-sig as well. You could go to unchained.com. You could book a consultation and you could use code GreenCandle50 for 50% all accounts, except for their signature product. If you want a signature account, you could get Green Candle Signature, and that'll get you $600 off their signature product. So that's about $6,000 annually. So I'm saving you 10% there. And then the Green Candle $50 off of all accounts there on Unchained. So go check those boys out because they're absolutely crushing it. And those two groups can help you get your Bitcoin off an exchange. You need to do that because this Bitcoin is not getting any cheaper, folks. This Bitcoin is just going to continue to raise up and get more and more expensive. All-nighter hider. People scramble for, I don't know if I could say that on YouTube, BTC and safety. Fine line between the last two. Amen to that. He's saying that Hugh is just like his persona in real life. He's a riot. I would love to meet Hugh. So one of these days, I've got to find a way to meet the legend, Hugh Henry. BTC Force is saying you will need more than that 0.01 Bitcoin. Look, if you wait long enough, time heals all. That's Robert Kiyosaki saying that. It's not me. There are only 1 or 2 million Bitcoin left to be mined, and the price will go, as Rob Paul describes, into the banana zone. Don't be a yellow banana. Open your eyes and your mind and listen to people like Raoul Paul, Michael Saylor, Anthony Pompliano, and many others. Then follow Bitcoin, Bitcoin Zella. Look in the future of money. Look, all I'm saying, follow the content of Green Candle. You'll get all caught up on everything you got like there. I guess I got to go to Rebel Capitalist Live here soon with my friend George. All-nighter hider, spam the chat and tell George to invite Brandon from Green Candle to the next one. And maybe, just maybe, I'll make a trip out there because we've got these billionaires now going into Bitcoin. And I got to argue a little bit with George on Bitcoin because he says there's a little portion that everybody needs in Bitcoin, but he's still not the full Bitcoin bull that we would want to see out of my man, George Gammon, just yet. But I think once he starts to talk to a lot of his billionaire buddies, we had him and Jeff Booth had an amazing panel down in Medellin not too long ago. So I think he's going to be coming to the other side here pretty soon. But smoke the like Cheech and Chong if you guys haven't already. Hit the subscribe button with the bell notification so you guys know when I'm going live because I'm giving out free sats literally every single live stream. So just come in and join. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.